Winners practice ethical conduct. How many of you remember Groucho, the Marx Brothers? You know, if you don't like my principles, I have others. We may see a lot of that in today's world. It goes without saying, and let me point this, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I remember, I think it was December 22nd, 1999 to be a fact. Something happened with me. Anybody around here know? Jacksonville Jaguars are playing at the Cleveland Browns on a Sunday afternoon. It's in the second quarter, and a false start took place by the right tackle, a gentleman by the name of Orlando Brown. An official threw a flag, and the flag somehow made it through the face mask of Orlando Brown, hit him right below the eye, and because Orlando had the sickle cell trait, clotting does not take place that well with folks that have the sickle cell trait, so the hematoma that came up on the eye was quite severe and all those kind of things. Who was that official that threw that flag? My career, I knew right then, when that happened on the field, Orlando went out of the game, came right back, pushed me down on the ground, you know, melee kind of ensued. We did all these things. And I said, my career is over in the NFL. Because there was this, Jerry Seaman was my boss at the time, and Jerry always said, well, you guys need to have popcorn in your flags. And all of us would kind of snicker and laugh and say, there's no way popcorn, they can't throw the flag very far if it has popcorn in it. So we all made our own flags back in those days. Everybody. The league sent us a yellow cloth about like this and said, make your flag. So we had guys that had bolts, big bolts, big ball bearings, you know, you name it. We had all kind of contraptions out there. Mine, I'd taken a flag that that I'd used in college. The weight that had been manufactured had BBs, and it was in a pouch. So I cut that little pouch out and put it inside this new yellow flag, put tape around the bottom of it, and that's what I used. And that's what I had thrown. So in the league office, I found this out later. On Monday morning, folks get to the league office. The supervisors are all sitting around with Jerry Seaman, and the question comes up, I wonder what Jeff has in his flag. And a friend of mine who I'd worked college ball with, who was named Al Hines, Al said, I said at that point, I said, well, whatever it is, he's going to tell us. Jerry called me and asked me. He says, what did you have in your flag? I said, had BBs. He said, send me your flag. So I FedExed the flag. Later that day, I probably had a half a dozen officials call me and ask the question, what did you have in your flag? And I said, why do you ask? He said, well, geez, you shouldn't, you should have told them you had, popcorn in your flag. You should have had this. You had they paid a settlement. It took me a while to get over all that. Orlando and I got to be good friends when he came back into football several years later. His son, in fact, I worked one of his games for his son this year, and he's in the league. And we talked before the game that I was at this year. I say all that because if you don't practice ethical conduct, to tell the truth, it will come back to bite you. And real leaders practice ethical conduct. Winners give others credit and have fun doing it. You never go wrong saying thank you. You know, some of this stuff is really simple. Being a real leader, being a real winner, is not hard. It's hard if you make it hard. It's hard if you don't want to give other folks credit. Some of the folks we had dinner last night, I talked about a couple of folks who made me a much better football official. He's going to work this weekend. If you get to see him, his name's Jeff Bergman. He's going to be in New Orleans. Jeff is the line judge, line judge. He and I were together the last 7 years on a crew together. Jeff improved my game from here to here because he was honest with me. He would say, Tripp, your announcement sucked on that one. Get better. Okay. I'd go back and look at it, and he was right. And then he would be one of the first ones that would call me, say, oh man, you nailed it on that.